My name is Natalie Carter, and for the first 7 years of my marriage, I was invisible in my own home. They didn't say it outright, not at first, but I felt it every time my husband's mother asked, "So, what do you do all day?" I felt it when his friends laughed about women who marry a paycheck. I felt it most when even my husband, James, chuckled and said, "Natalie just keeps things running. She's good at folding laundry and coupons." I wasn't folding laundry, I was holding our lives together. I had walked away from a career in marketing to raise our 2 kids. It wasn't a sob story, it was our choice. James had a stable job in insurance, and daycare for 2 toddlers would have cost more than I made at the time. So I stayed home. I figured we were a team. I'd raise the babies, cook, clean, pay the bills, schedule appointments, grocery shop, track birthdays, run the school drop-offs, fix clogged toilets, manage the dog, file taxes, and yes, fold the damn laundry. But somewhere along the line, the word homemaker turned into freeloader in everyone else's mind. It started with little things. James's mom Linda would sigh when I made dinner from scratch, then ask, "Did you do anything else today?" His brother would drop in on Sundays, glance around, and say, "Well, the place looks lived in." And James, he'd come home, throw his briefcase down, collapse on the couch, and say, "Babe, I worked all day, I need a minute." As if I hadn't spent the past 12 hours making sure 2 toddlers didn't set the curtains on fire. But the breaking point, the moment everything inside me shifted, came one humid July evening during a backyard BBQ. We were hosting. I grilled the burgers, cleaned the patio, set up games for the kids, iced the drinks, made 3 different salads because Linda was picky, and still managed to greet every guest with a smile. I barely sat down, not for more than 2 minutes. Around sunset, I came out of the kitchen with a fresh tray of deviled eggs and stopped just behind the open sliding door. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop. But their voices carried. "She's got it easy." One of James's friends, Peter, I think was saying, "Wish I could get paid to sit on my ass and bake cookies all day." Linda laughed. "Oh, she loves playing house. I just hope James doesn't wake up one day and realize he married a houseplant." The men chuckled. James, he laughed. "Don't tempt me," he said. "Some days I think even Alexa works harder than her." The tray shook in my hands. I didn't say anything. I didn't slam the door or throw the food or burst into tears. I just turned, walked back to the kitchen, set the tray down gently, went upstairs and shut the bedroom door. It was like something inside me had died and something else, something sharper, colder, had taken its place. They didn't see me, not really. They didn't understand what it meant to give up your independence, your career, your financial freedom, and then be treated like a glorified maid who doesn't contribute. They didn't respect the hours I spent teaching our kids to read, the nights I stayed up disinfecting throw up, the days I walked through life with spit up on my shirt and a screaming baby on my hip. They thought I was lazy. And right then and there, I decided they would eat those words, not with a fight, not with a screaming match, not with drama. No, I was going to do the one thing they thought I wasn't capable of. I was going to become successful. Quietly, ruthlessly, from right where I stood. That night, after the last guest left and James had passed out half, drunk on the couch, I pulled out my old laptop Dusty, slow, barely hanging on, and typed a question into Google: how to start an online business from home with $0. I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know what path I'd take. Dropshipping, digital products, social media management, didn't matter. All I knew was I was going to learn everything they thought I was too stupid, too lazy, too distracted to learn. I started bookmarking resources, subscribed to YouTube channels, created a new Gmail account under a fake name, so no one, especially not James, would see what I was doing. I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't say a word until I had results. Let them keep laughing. Let them keep mocking me. Let them call me lazy while I built something they couldn't see coming. Because I wasn't just going to prove them wrong. I was going to bury their words in 6 figures of proof, and I'd do it from the same kitchen they thought I'd never leave. For weeks, I didn't tell a soul what I was doing, not my husband, not my sister, not my best friend. I didn't want encouragement. I didn't want advice. I didn't even want applause. What I wanted was proof that I wasn't just a stay-at-home mom who had given up on herself. I wanted to see if the version of me that used to dream big, solve problems, and chase goals still existed beneath the diaper bags and grocery lists. So after the kids went to bed and James fell asleep watching sports, I put on my old headphones and studied like my life depended on it. At first, I barely understood what I was reading. Sales funnels, SEO, click-through rates, conversion copy, upsells, split testing, print, on-demand, ad spend. It felt like learning another language, but I kept going. I took free webinars and recorded them so I could rewatch later. I borrowed books from the library about online business, consumer psychology, and digital marketing. I downloaded podcasts and played them while folding laundry. I found Facebook groups of other moms trying to build income from home, and I lurked in the comments, absorbing every bit of information I could. One night, I found a story about a woman who started a print-on-demand Etsy shop from her kitchen. She made cute little mugs with sarcastic sayings like tired as a mother or running on coffee and dry shampoo, and she'd cleared $20,000 in her first year. That lit something in me. I had always been creative sarcastic, too, and I'd made funny t-shirts and birthday signs for our kids' parties for years. I never thought of it as a skill, but now I wondered if maybe, just maybe, I could turn that into something real. So I signed up for Canva, free plan. I started designing every night. Slogans, graphics, mock-ups. Some were bad, really bad, but some made me laugh out loud. I made one that said, Domestic CEO, and another that said, I run this house like a Fortune 500 company without pay. I created a test shop on Etsy. No ads yet, no expectations, but even seeing the listings up there, even if no one ever bought them, felt like I had taken the first brick and laid it at the base of something I was building for me. I watched videos about Etsy SEO, read customer reviews on similar products, and tweaked my titles and tags based on what was trending. Every day I improved. Every night I got a little faster, a little smarter. I taught myself how to create mock-ups using free stock photos, lifestyle images that made my products look like they were already popular. I didn't have money to waste on trial and error, so I used tools that cost nothing. Printify became my print-on-demand partner. Etsy didn't charge until a product sold. I linked the two quietly and tested an order myself a mug that said, "This is my last clean cup." It arrived a week later. I cried when I opened it, not because it was beautiful though it was, but because it was real. I had made something, and it was in my hands. I hid the mug in the back of the cabinet. A few days later, I woke up to a notification. You've made a sale. Someone in Michigan had ordered my Domestic CEO shirt. I stared at the email in shock, then immediately checked my dashboard to make sure it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't. It was $1 profit small. Sure, but it felt like I'd just hit the jackpot. I didn't tell James, not yet. He still came home grumbling about how tired he was, still made jokes about my me time during the day, still called his mom on weekends and let her ask, "So what's Natalie doing now?" Still baking banana bread. They all thought I was wasting time on Pinterest and planning themed birthday parties, but I was planning something else entirely. My sales trickled in slowly, 2 shirts a week, then 3, then a mug. I reinvested every dollar, upgraded my Canva plan, bought a better mock-up set, and finally paid for a low-budget Etsy ad. It worked. After 2 months, I hit my first $300 in profit. After 4, it was over $200. That money, I didn't touch a dime of it. I opened a new bank account at a completely separate institution and deposited everything there. I didn't even use my name. The account was under Carter Creative Co., the name I quietly gave my store. James never noticed. He was too busy complaining about work, arguing with the kids, and rolling his eyes when I told him I was working upstairs. He had no idea that while he was snoring on the couch, I was creating designs that were now being worn in 16 states. No idea that I had hundreds of 5-star reviews. No idea that I was messaging customers at midnight and negotiating supplier delays like a real business owner. Because I was a real business owner, I just wasn't the kind he respected. Not yet, but I knew my time was coming. I could feel it. The numbers didn't lie, and every day they climbed higher. They thought I was bored, lazy, dependent, but I was learning in secret, growing in silence. And when I finally showed them the truth, it wouldn't just shock them. It would humble them. It happened by accident. I hadn't planned on telling James. I was going to wait until I hit 5 figures, maybe even 6. But one night, he walked into the room while I was on my laptop and saw the dashboard. "What's that?" he asked, frowning. I hesitated, my mouse hovering over the sales graph. "It's my store," I said, keeping my voice even. "I've been running a small Etsy shop the last few months." He squinted, walked closer, and stared at the screen. "Wait, this is yours?" he asked, pointing at the revenue total. I nodded. There was a long pause. I thought maybe he'd be impressed, proud, even. I thought he'd finally see me. Instead, he laughed. A short, sharp, mocking laugh. Like I had just told him I was training to be an astronaut in our backyard. "You're selling t-shirts," he said, "online." He shook his head and muttered, "That's cute." Cute. That one word stung harder than anything. I didn't say anything. I just minimized the window and closed the laptop. I knew if I spoke, I'd cry. And I didn't want to cry. I wanted to remember how this moment felt. I wanted to remember the look on his face when he thought I was just playing entrepreneur. Because one day, when the numbers were too big to laugh at, I was going to remind him of this exact night. After he left the room, I reopened my laptop. That weekend, I added 14 new listings to the shop. Then I created an Instagram account under my business name. I started sharing mock-ups, funny quotes, and customer reviews. I followed small business hashtags. I interacted with other shop owners. I learned how to write captions that converted and how to direct followers to my Etsy page. The orders started doubling, then tripling. I spent my mornings printing shipping labels, my afternoons scheduling posts, and my nights designing new products. I had officially entered beast mode, but silently. No complaining, no victory laps. Just consistent, focused, invisible effort. Every time James made another joke about influencers or rolled his eyes when I said I had work to do, I smiled inside because I had something better than his approval. I had progress. By month 6, I had crossed $10,000 in profit, all from inside the same kitchen where he once joked I should stick to baking banana bread. I took $2,000 of that and bought a second-hand laptop, sleek, fast, and all mine. I even got noise, canceling headphones so I could design while the kids played in the next room. My little mom space was becoming a command center, and still, I didn't tell him the full truth. I let him believe it was just a side thing. A hobby, something to keep me busy while he did the real work. Because if I had told him I was now making more per month than he was, he would have panicked, not out of love, out of ego. James wasn't built to handle a wife who didn't need him financially. His masculinity had been wired around the idea that I was lucky to have him, that I depended on him, that he was the provider and I was the assistant to his life. I knew the second he realized I could do this without him, his entire world would shake. So I let him sleep in that illusion a little longer. I smiled when he bragged to his mother that I was trying that Etsy thing. I nodded when his sister asked if I had found a real job yet. Meanwhile, one of my mugs had gone viral on Pinterest. My monthly sales crossed $4,000. I was now making more than I had at my old marketing job, the one I left when our second child was born. But more than that, I was proving something, not just to him. To myself, all those years I was told that being a stay-at-home mom wasn't real work, that I was wasting my degree, that I had thrown away ambition. They were wrong. I hadn't thrown anything away. I had been storing it. And now I was using every skill I ever learned, and some I didn't even know. I had to build something from scratch. In a world that didn't think I could, they laughed, so I let them. Because when the laughter stopped, I would already be miles ahead, and I wouldn't need their applause when they finally realized it, just like I didn't need their permission to start. It happened 6 days after my store crossed $50,000. 0 in lifetime sales. It was a Tuesday, warm, quiet, the kind of day where nothing seems dramatic. But that afternoon changed everything between me and James forever. He came home angry. I could hear the way the car door slammed from the kitchen. I had just finished responding to a customer who wanted 300 custom tote bags for a bridal convention. It was my biggest bulk order to date, over $2,000 in profit, and I was still smiling when he stormed into the living room. "Of course they're cutting my hours," he snapped, tossing his bag on the floor. "You think loyalty means anything to these people?" I paused. This sounded familiar. He was angry because, after years of coasting on the idea that he was the provider, his job had pulled the rug out from under him. I asked carefully, "What are you going to do?" He sighed hard, rubbing his forehead like the weight of the world sat behind his temples. "I don't know. We'll have to tighten things up. Maybe you go back to work, something small, just until things even out." I looked at him. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't feel panic when he talked about money. I felt clarity. "James," I said, "we'll be okay." He gave me a tired look, like I was being naive. "Yeah, with what, Natalie?" "Your cute little t-shirt shop." I nodded once. Calm, he rolled his eyes and walked to the fridge. "We need real income." That was when I walked upstairs, opened my drawer, and brought down the folder. Inside was a full printed report of my business earnings to date. Orders, reviews, Etsy payouts, tax documents. I'd created it the week before when I began applying for a home-based business license. I handed it to him without saying a word. He flipped through it lazily at first. Then slower and slower, his face changed. He sat down. "You made this?" he asked, stunned. "Yes." I said, "You've been doing this the whole time?" "Yes." The silence between us was thick. For a moment, I saw him run through the last 6 months in his head. All the nights I played on my laptop. All the times I skipped a movie to finish work. All the mornings he thought I was just making Pinterest boards when I was filing shipping confirmations. Finally, he spoke. "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked him dead in the eyes. "Because you would have laughed." I said softly, and I didn't need to be laughed at. I needed to build. He didn't say anything, and that told me everything. That night, something shifted between us. He walked softer, talked slower. He wasn't angry anymore. He was stunned, but it wasn't just about money. It was about control. He realized he wasn't the only one steering this ship anymore, and for the first time, he wasn't the only one who could keep it afloat. In fact, I could do it without him. I started paying the grocery bills from my business account. I upgraded our kids' school supplies without asking, and when his truck needed repairs, I covered it in cash, but I didn't throw it in his face. I wasn't vengeful. I was focused, because I hadn't built this to beat him. I had built this to be free, free from his condescension, free from his mother's pity, free from the feeling that I had to ask permission to matter. Every dollar I made felt like a vote for the woman I had buried beneath years of quiet sacrifices. The woman who used to be bold, the woman who used to walk into a room like she belonged. That woman wasn't gone. She was just building in silence, and now she was almost ready to speak, but not with words. With results, because you can't argue with a bank account. You can't dismiss 5-figure sales, and you definitely can't mock a woman who rebuilt herself while you weren't looking. He once said I was just a stay-at-home mom. Now I was the one keeping our household afloat. 3 weeks after James found out the truth about my business, we stopped speaking in full sentences. He didn't yell. He didn't fight. He just shut down. He'd come home from work, walk past my workspace without looking, eat dinner in silence, and fall asleep with his back turned. He hadn't touched me since the day he realized I no longer needed his wallet or his permission. But I wasn't begging for understanding anymore. I was too busy, because something had happened in those 3 weeks. A content creator with over 400,000 followers had stumbled upon one of my shirts, the one with the quote, "Motherhood is a full-time job. I just decided to get paid twice." She shared a photo of herself wearing it, tagged me in the caption, and within 24 hours, I had 1,600 new orders. The Etsy backend crashed. I got emails from PayPal flagging the surge. People were messaging me from Germany, Australia, South Africa. My little shop, built quietly from the corner of a kitchen table, had just gone viral. I stayed up that night packing as many orders as I could while my kids slept upstairs. I cried while printing shipping labels. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because for the first time in years I felt completely, unmistakably seen, and not by James, by the world, by the customers who were tagging me with love, by the women saying, "This made me feel powerful," by the ones who wrote, "You reminded me I can start again." That week, I made more than James did in 3 months. I opened a business checking account, hired 2 stay-at-home moms from the neighborhood to help with packing, and applied for a resale license in our state. My accountant, yes, I had one now, advised me to set up an LLC. I named it after my grandmother, the woman who once told me, "Quiet women build loud empires." One Friday afternoon, I got an email from the local credit union. The small business loan I'd applied for had been approved. Not because I needed money, I didn't, but because I wanted the leverage. With that approval letter, I did something I hadn't done in a decade. I walked into a dealership, not for a flashy car. I wasn't trying to show off. I needed a reliable van to transport bulk orders to the regional post office and possibly set up a pop-up booth at a local women's conference. When I told the salesman it would be a business purchase and that I'd pay 40% down upfront, he asked what kind of business I ran. I looked him square in the eyes and said, "One that they laughed at, until it paid for this van." He smiled. "Good for you." I drove that van home and parked it neatly in the driveway. It was white. Clean, not luxurious, but it sparkled. When James pulled in later, I saw his eyes dart to the new vehicle. He didn't ask. I didn't explain. I think that silence hurt him more than anything. I was no longer explaining how I lived. I was demonstrating it. The next week, a check came in from a licensing deal I had signed with a subscription box service. They wanted to include one of my designs in their Mother's Day promotion. The check was for $300. I deposited it and sat in the car outside the bank for a long time, not to think, to feel. I remembered all the times James had said, "You don't get how hard money is to make." I remembered how his sister laughed when I said I wanted to start a shop. I remembered his mother's comment, "You're lucky he supports you staying home." No one had supported me. They tolerated me, and now I didn't need them to, because I was done waiting for support. I had built my own foundation, and it was solid. The real turning point came at my daughter's school. They were hosting a Career Day event. Parents were invited to come speak to the class. Last year, James went talking about accounting and spreadsheets while the kids stared out the window. This year, my daughter asked me, "Mom, can you tell them about your shop? You work from home and you're always here for us." Her voice cracked when she said it, like she was proud, and that made me prouder than any paycheck. So I stood in front of 27-8-year-olds and told them I was a business owner, that I started with one product, one laptop, and one dream. I told them they could build something too, that being underestimated is a secret weapon because no one sees you coming until it's too late. The school principal pulled me aside afterward. "Would you consider giving a talk to the PTA?" she asked. "A lot of our moms could really use this inspiration." I smiled. I was now the example, not the warning. When I got home that night, James was watching TV in the dark. The show was some reality drama. He didn't look up. "I heard from my mom today," he said. "She saw your shirt on Instagram." I nodded, taking off my shoes. "It's doing well. You've changed," he muttered. I turned to him, not angry, not smug, just honest. "No." I said I remembered who I was, and I walked upstairs. He never followed. 6 months after my store went viral, I stood in front of a crowd of 600 women at the annual Women in Business Expo. And no, I wasn't just attending. I was the keynote speaker. They introduced me as Natalie Quinn, founder, designer, and CEO of Quinn Threads, a homegrown business turned 6-figure success. The audience applauded as I walked on stage wearing a simple, bold t-shirt that read, "Built from the kitchen table." I had tears in my eyes before I even touched the microphone, because just 1 year earlier, I was being mocked for doing nothing, for just staying home. And now I was being applauded for doing exactly that, but doing it on my terms. I took a deep breath, smiled at the rows of women watching me, and began telling the truth, not just about the business, but about what it felt like to be dismissed, undervalued, mocked by your own family. Your own husband, I told them how I started from nothing but frustration and why, how I learned design tools while my toddler napped, how I read articles at 2 a.m. while James snored in bed, never asking what I was working on. How I shipped shirts out of my coat closet because I didn't even have an office. I told them how I stopped waiting for applause and started building in silence, and that silence, over time, became power. Revenue, confidence. When I finished, people were crying, laughing, lining up to hug me, to say, I needed this. Some handed me cards. Others showed me their own small businesses they were just starting. Women I'd never met were thanking me for proving that motherhood and ambition don't cancel each other out, they fuel each other. As I stepped off stage, I saw someone I didn't expect. James. He stood in the back, arms folded, no expression. We hadn't separated, not officially, but we lived like two polite strangers in the same house. He'd become quiet, almost invisible, like he didn't know where he fit anymore, and honestly, I wasn't sure either. That night, he took me to dinner, his idea. We sat in silence for the first few minutes, the clinking of glasses around us filling the space. Then he looked at me. I'm proud of you, he said. I should have seen it sooner. I nodded. I think we stopped seeing each other a long time ago. I replied. He looked down. I don't know what I'm supposed to be now. And that was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me, so I told him the truth. You're still their dad. You still matter, but I'm not living small to make you feel big anymore. He blinked hard. I didn't say it to hurt him. I said it because it was time he heard it, and because I finally meant it. For too long, I had compressed myself into the box people said I should fit in: good wife, quiet mom, background support. But I had grown, I had evolved, I had become undeniable, and no matter what happened next between us, I wasn't giving that up. 2 weeks later, he moved into the guest room, not angrily, just, quietly, like he knew something had ended, and maybe it had, but something bigger had started. That same week, my mother-in-law called. The one who once said I should be grateful James let me stay home. I saw your interview in the paper, she said. It's impressive. I thanked her, then I told her I had a waiting list 3 months long. She didn't say much after that. Funny how quiet people get when they realize the person they talked down to is now above them, not financially, not even socially, just emotionally out of their reach. Because I didn't just prove them wrong, I proved myself right, that I had value, that I had vision, that staying at home wasn't a limitation, it was a launch pad. A few months later, I rented a small workspace outside the house. Not because I had to, but because I could. I hired 3 full-time moms and gave them hours that worked with school pickups. I paid them more than minimum wage. I offered flexibility no corporate job ever gave me. I remembered what it felt like to be invisible, so I made damn sure they never felt that way. I still ran the business from my laptop, still packed boxes with my kids sometimes, but now everything had changed. I wasn't building just for me anymore. I was building a legacy, and I never once raised my voice, never threw anything back in James's face, never gloated in front of his mother, because I didn't need revenge. I became the one thing no one can argue with, a woman who delivered results while they doubted her. They mocked me when I had nothing. Now they scroll past my features in magazines and pretend they always believed in me. Let them. I don't build for applause anymore. I build because it's mine. And the next time someone calls a woman just to stay at home mom, I hope they remember my name.